We are here today with Ramón Pacheco Pardo, Korea Foundation, Free University of Brussels Korea Chair, to discuss about the prospects of the resume of the negotiations between the US and North Korea, because I mean both governments, they have manifested their interest in going back to the negotiation table. And I would like to ask you, Ramon, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it is likely that we will see a resumption of negotiations in the following weeks. Obviously, after Hanoi, it is clear that the diplomatic process, it didn't collapse, but it basically was interrupted for a number of months. But now we have seen on the North Korean side calls for resuming the dialogue at the working level. The US has been very interested for a long period of time in doing so, and there is even potential talk about a third summit. Mm-hmm. So I think we'll have talks in the not too distant future. Plus, obviously, we have the fact that there has been a reshuffle in the US administration, and John Bolton, that was opposed to the negotiation process with North Korea, has been removed, which I think indicates that President Trump now is willing to offer some concessions to North Korea, which makes it more likely for North Korea to negotiate in good faith with the US at the working level.
Yeah, although in the last months we haven't seen more nuclear or ICBM tests, how would you assess at the moment the current stage of the North Korean nuclear program?
I think that it is clear that North Korea has kept improving the nuclear program, and especially the missile program, even though the last nuclear test was in 2017, same with ICBM tests. And this is not only because of the short-range missile tests in recent weeks and months, but also because obviously the scientists in North Korea continue to work on the programs, and they have no reason to stop, because the problem is to stop the test but not the development of the program. So I assume that North Korea now has more nuclear weapons, more missiles than it did have in 2017 or before the Singapore summit in 2018, and I would assume they are more technologically advanced than they were last year or a couple of years ago.
In this context, there is a massive consensus among the analyst community that it's very unlikely that whole bargain agreement could be reached. So it should be focused more on kind of an interim agreement. And what do you think that would take for both the DPRK and the US to be able to reach that kind of interim agreement?
I do agree that an interim agreement is far more likely at this stage. North Koreans don't want, as the US puts it, a grand bargain. So I would imagine that that deal will include North Korea actually agreeing to take steps towards denuclearization. This could be a cap on its development of its nuclear program for the time being. It could be offering access and the dismantlement of the Jongbyon nuclear complex, because that's what North Korea actually was willing to offer in the Hanoi summit. And I actually think that North Korea is willing to accept the presence of inspectors, international inspectors on the ground, international inspectors that some of them, I would imagine the US want to have some American inspectors, but it would be from the International Atomic Energy Agency, from Europe, from different places. Now, on the US side, I think we have seen a move towards agreeing that at the very least, the interruption of the application of sanctions is on the table, which doesn't mean fully removing the sanctions at this stage. I'm talking more about the 2016-17 sanctions, the last 5 rounds of sanctions, but allowing for some economic exchanges with North Korea, not necessarily with the US, but with South Korea, with other countries as well, and then see what happens, right? Because in 2-3 years you could decide that the interruption holds no more and sanctions are being implemented again. I think the US will be offering the possibility of opening liaison offices, because again that was offering in Hanoi, and I think the US will be willing to put diplomatic pressure on other countries, I would put it this way, to come up with an economic package for North Korea, which I don't think the US is willing to put money itself, maybe a little bit, but I think it will actually be pressing other countries to say, okay, why don't we come up with an international economic package, including aid, maybe investment as well.
Yeah, so even if the European Union, the member states, they are like the key of course, they're not the key players in the Korean Peninsula. But just related to what you said at the end, maybe they should play, a more active role. They should have a role to play, in these negotiations.
I think so. I mean, after the Singapore summit, North Korea actually wanted to resume the political dialogue with the European Union. It was the European Union that said no. But at this stage, Kim has been to Vietnam and Singapore, has met with all the leaders in Northeast Asia, except with Prime Minister Abe, has met with President Trump a couple of times. There's really no reason for the European Union not to have a dialogue, a political dialogue with North Korea. It doesn't have to be at the highest level, so it doesn't have to be with Kim himself. It could be at the foreign minister level, maybe with a new high representative coming to office in a few weeks' time. And I think it would be beneficial for the European Union in the sense that right now the European Union doesn't really have direct access to the top leadership of North Korea, but with a dialogue you could actually put issues on the table that the US, South Korea are not discussing, like for example human rights, which is a very big concern for the European Union, but let's face it, other countries are not willing to discuss that with the North Koreans right now. Same if we talk about a potential economic package. Well, the European could discuss directly with North Korea what it might be willing to offer and what it might be expecting from North Korea in return, plus, for example, proliferation, which, to be honest, the US is not really discussing proliferation at this stage with North Korea. It is actually discussing denuclearization, but as far as we know, North Korea continues to proliferate nuclear materials and missiles to other parts of the world. So that's something that you could discuss directly, because especially proliferation to the Middle East is a top concern for the European Union.
Thank you so much, Ramon, and I hope we will have more opportunities to keep discussing about this very stimulating issue.